So my name is Bryan Blackford. I am developer of DraftyCar and also work for the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Awesome. Do you remember what your first memory of NASCAR is?
Yeah, my first memory of NASCAR is hanging out on our back porch with my dad. We were huge Dale Earnhardt fans, and just being on his lap watching the races. That's my first memory, but getting to actually go to Daytona for a number of years, beginning in I believe 1996 was my first race. It was the race where John Andretti won the 400 down there with Cale Yarborough's car. So that was just so awesome, and I've just been a huge fan ever since.
Awesome. So like you are the guy behind DraftyCar. How did the idea for DraftyCar come about?
Yeah, so DraftyCar, originally the idea actually came from an old Flash game called NastyCar. So that was way back, I believe in the late 2000s. There was a Flash game called NastyCar that was really popular amongst our friends, and we just play it. You know, it was single player, top down drafting game where you just try to maneuver your way to the front of the pack. And I, throughout the years, I've kind of just played it off and on, and it got to the point where you kind of solved all the mysteries of the game, and you could beat it most of the time. And all of our friends, we always thought, man, if I could just get NastyCar on my phone just to burn a couple minutes here and there, that would just be awesome. And that was before I ever thought about getting into game development or doing anything like that. And then once I did get into game development, I started off with a really complex project, mainly focused on short tracks. It was a multiplayer racing game called Speedway Ringer. And throughout that whole process, basically, my friends, they said, hey, Bryan, you need to recreate NastyCar for, just do it for PC. I'll play it on my PC, And I was like, man, that's such a simple game. I can just make that in like a couple of weeks. Well, it turns out it's not as simple as it looks, probably from the outsider's perspective. Really put in a couple months to put together a decent game for PC, and just to see if there was any interest really. And it didn't really do well. The PC version of the game was very scaled back from what the mobile version was, and decided, hey, there is a limited amount of interest here. If people could get this on their phones, it's really, the controls are so simple, it would be great for a phone. So one thing led to another, and spent about a year and a half in development there, and released DraftyCar for iOS and Android.
That's awesome. So for people like myself who are clueless to the world of game design and development, what is just kind of a brief explanation of how the process is from idea to now it's in like the App Store?
Yeah, so I always, when people ask this question, I always say it's really similar to building a house. There's so many different things to account for when you're building a house. You have to have so many different specialists come in and work their area of expertise in order to have a good foundation, good siding, good, everything that, a good roof, everything that goes into building a house, plumbing, electrical. So basically, building a house is very similar to building a game. You have to have so many different skills, and that's honestly what I love about it, is you never can focus on one thing for too long before you jump to a different thing. So there's like 3D modeling where you have to model the cars, which it's not my strong suit, but I love to try my best anyway. There's programming, there's coding, there's art, there's lighting, there's marketing, there's the actual business side of it, and just so many different areas. There's really technical areas that a lot of people don't really quite realize until you get into the weeds. That it's very complex, and it's hard for one person to do. Normally, you have a team of people doing this type of thing. So if you do it solo, you kind of just have to be a jack of all trades, for sure.
Awesome. One of my favorite parts of the game is just looking at all of the paint scheme and like the parody companies on there.
Yeah.
Whenever you were adding them, is there one that stands out to you as like your favorite, either like paint scheme in the game or like your favorite parody?
Yeah. So a little backstory: my wife and I sat down and kind of went through a lot of those together. She's very clever. I'm not the most clever person when it comes to that kind of stuff, but so I originally, the number 1 car, I believe it was, I had it as like Mountain Water or something, and my wife was like, why don't you do something funnier, like, I don't know, like Mountain Brew. That just came out, and I was like, that's perfect. But yeah, I love all of them, really. Read the Bible on the Xfinity or Grand National Series, just that kind of stuff. It was definitely really cool. I really like most of them. Some of them are a little generic, but even the ones that I thought were generic, my friends actually thought, hey, that's just straight and to the point, that's really funny.
That's awesome. And finally, do you have a favorite NASCAR console game? Like, did you have one you grew up with, or a newer one that just stands out as your favorite?
Yeah, I grew up with, in the early 2000s, the prime time PlayStation 2. I love NASCAR Thunder 2003, 2004, and just would play those until, wee in the morning hours, and then finally hopped over to, sim racing, which ultimately fueled my passion to ultimately make a racing game. But yeah, I loved the Thunder games, and I loved Dirt to Daytona. I was a big fan of all types of racing, but I just really gravitated towards stock cars, and that was the best way to really, get into it. Really was those console games back in the day.
Awesome. If people are interested, I don't know if you want to give like your socials or where they can find the game or more info.
Yeah, so I post a lot of updates on my personal X account. It's Bryan Black 33. And we also have Drafty Car, the Drafty Car handle on X. We have the Drafty Car handle on TikTok and Instagram, which we're going to get better about posting on. And on Facebook, we're available on Speedway Labs. And in order to, play the game, you can just, if you have Android, you go to the Google Play Store, search for Drafty Car, it should pop right up. And then on iOS, if you search for Drafty Car on the App Store, you'll find it there.